for me. They say they wanna see black.
Tread deep.
Heather and Alrik, thank you so much for talking with me today. I'd like you to introduce yourselves and your respective roles within the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. So, Heather, let's start with you.
Hi, my name is Heather Brutz. I am the Transportation Program Director for the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center. The Clean Tech Center, which is what we often call it for short, is located within the College of Engineering here at NC State University. And so a lot of the work that we do is designed to bridge the gap between the ivory tower and research and the real world. And so I lead the transportation team here at the Clean Tech Center.
My name is Alrik Lunsford, and I work alongside Heather on the Clean Transportation team, serving as Senior Clean Transportation Specialist and also Director of Piedmont and Coastal NC Clean Communities, one of the over 70 designated clean season communities through partnership organizations with U.S. Department of Energy.
From the perspective of your organization, from the perspective of the North Carolina Clean Energy Technology Center, what would you say are the most significant challenges that fleets are facing as they really try and move along their journey into the environmentally friendly operations?
I think like the perennial is budget. Not all, but many of the advanced clean transportation technologies cost more upfront. And while you often can achieve a lower total cost of ownership, one of the challenges that some fleets face, depending on how they are allowed to evaluate their budgets, if they have to go and look at the upfront costs, then the upfront costs for purchasing alternative fuel vehicles and electric vehicles is definitely a major barrier. And there is significantly less grant funding available to help defray those costs than there used to be. And so that's one of the challenges that we see.
And I think also looking at grid capacity, working with the utilities, and making sure that you definitely have the right peak shavings, as well as if you're dealing with electric vehicles. But when you're looking at the infrastructure, laying out with the other fuels, such as whether it's natural gas or propane, as Heather said, it's upfront cost. And so looking at partnering with the utilities to make sure that everything is up to code, up to grade requirement side, as well as being able to foster the right requirements within the facilities and the buildings. Are sometimes challenges as well.
You went into this a little bit, but tell me, how is this year's Sustainable Fleet Technology Conference intending to address some of these issues?
We have 12 breakout sessions along 3 tracks. And so one of the tracks is on the topic of funding and policy. And so there is, for example, a breakout session on funding and how to go and basically weave together like different sources of funding to go and help pay for advanced vehicle technologies. We also do have sessions on lowering your overall total cost of ownership through various technologies, which also, helps address the funding side, budget side in a different way. And then a challenge that we didn't actually discuss, but that we have heard from fleets, is that there can be concerns with in this area where companies go in and out of business. And so, when you're planning for long-term vehicle replacement, how do you go and plan around that? And so we do have a session on vehicle replacement planning, for example, which looks at that question as well as other questions related to how to plan for, the timeline for replacing your vehicles and evaluating them.
Interesting. And I do want to ask you just a little bit of a question about that, because you mentioned total cost of ownership, TCO, and upfront cost, and the immediacy of the purchase moment. Are you seeing a balance in consideration by fleet operators between that, or is one more focused on than the others?
So honestly, I believe that a lot of that has to do with the internal policies of the organization that you're operating your fleet within. And so many municipal governments, and government agencies, they really, the way that their budgets are set up, the capital costs and the operating costs are totally separate, and they're not necessarily able to evaluate them as a whole. And when that is the case, then it's very difficult to really take into account total cost of ownership in a way that is meaningful. And so that's a challenge which, frankly, some fleet managers, that's just the reality that they have to face. And so then they, and the decision for that might be like way above their pay grade, where it's just not something that they have any control over. And so in cases like that, what we try to go and work with them on is, there are sometimes other ways. There are still some grant funds available. We'll try to go and help them know what is available for that. If they are looking at something such as electric vehicles, we'll also look at utility programs, make ready programs that can go and help reduce some of the costs needed for installing EV charging infrastructure. And so those are some of the other things that folks can look at.
So you went in depth a little bit into that space, which kind of raises the question, based on all the volatility that we've seen in this space, especially in the recent past, how do you anticipate broadening the narrative to include various fuel types, in addition to land use considerations or overall management practices? So, you've kind of gone down the perspective of consideration. How about across? Tell me a little bit about that, please.
Overall, the Clean Tech Center has always had an approach from doing all fuel or remaining fuel neutral to make sure that there is a balance for looking at what fuel type makes the most sense, because it all depends on the duty cycle, and it depends on the organization's sustainability goals. And so looking at how to help them meet those goals and see what particular alternative fuel makes the most sense is how we try to approach it. And then also from a DOE and Clean Cities and Communities perspective, we're also all about promoting all the fuel types. We'll say that obviously with the raising oil and gas it's been naturally that's going to drive people to look at other alt fuels, which would basically help out in looking at other things that are more cost effective, such as propane or electric vehicles. But I think, as we said earlier, with electric vehicles, if you don't have the upfront cost there, or it's a lot of upfront costs associated if you don't have deep pockets. And so we'll probably delve into it, but it all starts off with the baseline of doing a fleet assessment to see where we can meet fleets in the middle and meet their needs.
Let's stay on the Sustainable Fleet Technology Conference. What do you feel is so unique about this conference, and what can attendees expect to garner from it?
I think we have a really high quality level of educational content in our conference. So as I mentioned, there are 12 breakout sessions along 3 tracks. That's in addition to our keynote main stage presentations. So we're going to have speakers on the main stage from Volvo Trucks and from Chempower. And we're going to have a panel of leading fleet managers who have won various awards in the industry, who are going to kick off the conference and talk about some of the work that they're doing to make their fleets more sustainable.
From a resource standpoint, from what resources are available to the participants of the conference, to the attendees? So it sounds like education, it sounds like entertainment, it sounds like maybe a little bit of consulting, networking. Are those the things that you would like to highlight about this conference?
I would say so. Yeah, we've heard from previous attendees from previous conferences, as Heather said, that basically it's very niche in terms of the interactions that you get from the vendors and the attendees, as well as hearing broad in the spectrum from all the different advanced vehicle technologies and strategies with industry trends to help people out with their environmental sustainability goals. But we're able to do this through partnering with NAFA Fleet Management. through the webinar series that we do with NAFA. Basically, we do at least 10 webinar series a year,
Wow.
as well as being able to partner with them with the Green Fleet Awards, which will have a opening day reception pre-conference activity for that, as well as not only the reception but the training for fleet managers for the continual, basically the continual training. And so we also do, as we mentioned, webinar series in terms of basically helping out with fleet assessments. We just did one with planning for sustainable fleet series, essentially where we partner with Leke Services to provide fleets within coalition territory, basically free fuel assessments, as well as like the jurisdictions in North Carolina as a whole. So we do a number of different things, as well as some of our in-person events, such as the Clean Transportation Demonstration Days that we do every March or April as well. That is free for basically local government entities, fleet managers, utilities, electric cooperatives. So we encourage different organizations to bring light, medium, heavy duty vehicle cycles and from all the different alternative fuels to display the latest and greatest with the technologies, and give them a chance to really kick the tires, as well as test drive the vehicles to get that real world experience.
That's fantastic. So I think some of us, know a lot about your organization, but to hear it like that really brings a lot together. So really helps to focus on various aspects of what the organization does, and also what the event will entail. And I think sometimes we forget that you have such a strong connection. You are a dedicated arm of North Carolina State University. So please describe for me the Clean Energy Technology Center's role in shaping policy and standards for fleet implementation.
So I would start off by saying that as a state agency, we don't do advocacy. So much of the time when we're doing policy work, it is people are asking us for, what are some of the different ways that people have solved these? As opposed to like, there are, lobbying organizations that'll be like, you should do this. And we don't do that.
Yeah. And
some examples of some policy work that we do have an entire policy team that is separate from the transportation team, although there is some overlap. And they put together a database called Desire, DSIRE, and that has a number of incentives that you can look at for renewable energy, energy efficiency, and clean transportation. So you can go and use that as a resource to search. We are currently doing some research that's funded by NCDOT on the topic of resilience and electric vehicle charging infrastructure. And so there are two aspects to that research. We are doing some modeling that looks at wait times at chargers along I-40 headed from the coast inland in North Carolina. And that's for planning purposes for NCDOT to go and think about, in case of, for example, hurricanes. And, do we have sufficient charging infrastructure along that route? Also, as part of that particular project, we gave some high-level advice on different technologies that can be deployed in case of emergency to go and help, provide the needed charging during, evacuation scenarios. And so that's an example of the sort of policy work that we do. So it's usually less political. It's more, nuts and bolts sort of policy. As a Clean Cities and Communities Coalition, if people ask us for advice, we will often help to connect them to other fleets that are doing similar work, or pull together resources on what others have done. So, for example, there was a fleet that came to us and was asking for advice on what to do regarding take-home charging. And so we put them in touch with other folks who had done similar work so that they could go and get advice from it. And so that's an internal policy, but that's another one that we work on.
Wow. That's really interesting. Alrik, did you want to say something to that?
Well, Heather said was spot on. I mean, we definitely make sure that we are very generous of our time in terms of providing stakeholders with at least an hour of free consulting to be able to help them out, where if we don't know the answers, we can connect them to one of our other neighboring clean cities that will know the answers. In addition, it just kind of like adds validity to basically attending the conference and then being able to have that networking with some of the fleet managers that we have a long term sustained relationship with that have kind of like already been through these challenges and kind of like know how to go over these hurdles and provide guidance.
That's fantastic. So you've shared so much with us. I really appreciate that. So, sort of tagging on to that, Alrik, if you both were to tell us how the best way to get involved with the 2026 Sustainable Fleet Technology Conference would be for our viewers, let us know. How do you do that?
Well, there's several different ways. So we actually have education and outreach partners as well as promo partners. So if anyone actually signs on to be a promo partner, which they would have to be basically a nonprofit or a government entity or Clean Cities and Communities Coalition.
Did want to let people know that they can go and register to attend at sustainablefleetexpo.com. And that is if you just want to go and come as a regular attendee. We do have a couple of booth spaces left, I believe, in the expo hall. So that's also where you can register if you're interested in being an exhibitor.
Beautiful. So Heather and Alrik, I want to thank you so much for talking with me. It's been my great pleasure. Thank you.
Tread deep.